Alright, so this is my third time making this video, so sorry if I'm not as energetic. ECMAScript 6, this means the standards that are put together on what gets included in that particular programming language, how the syntax should be, and what is included, like our math. So when we were able to call the math object and then be able to do the by square root, we're taking that library from math, which has a whole bunch of things plugged into it, and that method is square root, and they say, okay, that's allowed. So this is like the group of people that oversee what is the standard for which programming language. In this particular set, this is for JavaScript. So when this says in the next question, it's not different technologies. It's just some place that oversees the rules for that language. And this was me going back and like, hey, let's read this. It's still false. That's past me, of course. After these messages. All right. So these are two, I'm going to introduce you to two new types of variables. You've gotten used to var. This is just kind of like a wide, loose, I'll accept a variable. You can access it almost anywhere. We've already done that. This is just saying, hey, I'm a generic variable, pretty much. There's two other types. There's this, which stands for constant, and there's this, which pretty much means it's a very, very temporary variable. So, the difference, constant, you cannot change this value. Once it's set like this, you cannot go back and change it at all. This, you can only access this variable within a specific scope. Now what that means is that down here, this if statement has a curly bracket and it ends with this curly bracket. Anything inside of this is where that scope is. You cannot access it outside of the program, and you can only do it in here. So when we declare this variable in here, we can't go outside of our if statement and say, hey, get my name. So that's what that means by scope. Now, anytime you use this, it will assign a new temporary variable, especially if it's within scope of something else. So let me explain that too. And it comes up. Okay. So this example right here. Actually, I'm going to bring this down to this. Okay. This variable, or this function, called var test, we've declared a variable using our keyword var called x that has the value of 1. If true, var x equals 2, we are reassigning that value to x. But it's going to act weird, and I told you that. That's the reason why you never use var twice. So, but it's still essentially referencing the same variable. The let, this is the exact same style. The only difference is instead of using var, we're using let to declare this variable. We're saying, hey, we have a curly bracket here. This function ends with that curly bracket there. We indent 1 to let us know that this is the next thing within that scope. And then you have your if statement, and there's a curly bracket here and a curly bracket here. This variable is not the same as this variable. You can't, if you're in here, you can't access that one at all. And this one can't access that one at all. but it's so it treats it as a different variable with the same name. All right. So with this, we have a little bit of code. So we have that keyword let, right? So v equals 2. Now, if true, well, of course, now it's true. Let v equal 4. We're going to console.log that v. So that's going to be 4. Now, outside, this v is right on, because you can see that the if lines up right here. That's how it ends. So the scope for this one is in here, because this is where your curly bracket is. So the answer is 42, or 4 and 2. All right. Now, our constants are right here. It will always be total. Always. We'll always have the value of 100%. So when we declare this as a constant, we can't go back and say total equals whatever total is minus 1. We just can't. We can't say, oh, the new total now is 50. Once it's constant, it's permanent. Now we can use this let in our for statement that makes I temporary, and it can reference it within this for loop, but we can't access it here. So that was more syntax. All right, this right here, this $ curly bracket expression in curly bracket, this takes place of the, kind of think of it as it's a substitution for a concatenation. So we don't have to use like end quote, hit the plus, hit the quote, and continue on. You can just use that $ and then the curly brackets and reference your variables there to do that math. I never use it, but that doesn't mean that you couldn't if you really get a good feel for that. All right, so loops. So we have several different new types. So we're still using our let variables, right? So it's the same as what we were just talking about. But we can do a let in and we can do of. In will kind of iterate through an array. So if you have like an array that has a whole bunch of different things, in will iterate, but it's older or it's newer, and some of the older stuff that will react weird. So you want to use let and then you want to use of and not in. And it'll just iterate through it. It's a different way of doing it, pretty much. With computers, there's always two different ways. And the goal is to shorten it. So that's more of the shortcut ways of doing each one of those types. Along with this, I don't want you to worry about this too much. Just give this answer. This is pretty much giving a shortcut on a new array, and it has a function. And this is more syntax. I do not want you guys even having to stress about that at all. Like, I have never used it, ever. All right. So, what's the output of this code? We have this is our program, magic. We're passing 2. A has 2. We're returning 2 plus whatever B is, which is 40. So the answer is 42. The answer to life. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Take care of your teeth. Right? Don't be that guy. All right. Go ahead, take a screenshot and submit. Don't forget to put your name on it. All right, thank you.